Massachusetts. We have Elsie on the Republican line.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. I thought he was a senator. He's not. He's a candidate for senator, right?
Correct.
So he wouldn't know. Question. I wanted to know if the Social Security is dead or what, or in Medicare. I want to know because I'm 81 years old, and I just lost my husband, which was a veteran due for medicine, and I'm here trying to figure out if I'm going to have Social Security to pay my bills. I'm 81, and I took care of him, and I did everything I could. And you are sitting up there trying to run for the Senate. If you ever get in, tell the truth. Is Social Security dead? I'm depending on it to live. I can't get a job at 81 years old. There's no jobs to have.
Right. Well, I think that's a good question. Is Social Security dead? Social Security is running short of money, and so is Medicare. And the reason they're running short of money is we used to have 7 workers for every retiree. Now we have about 1 worker for every retiree. So the demographics are difficult. So it's not that they're dead and that they're going to run out of money, but they eventually will because we don't have enough workers for retirees. But that's why we shouldn't increase or add to the benefits. During the 8 years of the Republican administration, we added Medicare prescription drug plans, and there are some senior citizens who can't afford drugs, but when we gave all senior citizens free drugs, we sped up the demise and the bankruptcy of Medicare. That also should be driving the debate now because they're talking about adding 46 million people. Some of them are not citizens also. They're talking about adding these people into the healthcare realm and having government or having the taxpayer pay for it. So we are running short of money. The other thing I would say is that you have to realize that nothing in life is free. In fact, P.J. O'Rourke likes to say, you think healthcare is expensive now, wait till it's free. Nothing's really free. You will have to pay taxes for these things. Will Social Security and Medicare continue to exist? Yes. But the real question you have to ask is, if we have 10% inflation next year and you only get a 2% cost of living raise, will your Social Security check be able to buy anything in the grocery store? That's the real question. That's where your real danger is. Not that Social Security will fail, but that your prices in the grocery store will rise faster than your Social Security payment.
On the independent line, we have Gary from Azle, Texas.
Yes. Now, I'm a medically retired postal worker, but I'm medically retired basically because of my military disability from the 70s. I've spent over 25 years at the post office, and I've seen all different kinds of stuff. And I have, I guess they'd call that a Cadillac health plan from the post office because it's the Federal Employees Health Benefits Plan. But here in Texas, I've seen some of the doctors that have actually dropped some of these from the Federal Employees Health Benefits because they can't negotiate a price on, for PPO and stuff like that, and they won't accept the price. And back in the 80s, we had to take and fight some of the insurance companies because they sat there and wouldn't pay for some veterans on their disabilities because they called it a pre-existing condition. And the way I feel and other veterans feel, if there's a company in this country that's going to say, okay, well, we're not going to do this vet because he's got a pre-existing condition, they don't deserve to do business in this country.
Right. I've always kind of joked and said that the congressmen should go to the VA for their health care and the veterans should get the congressional health care, and that might shape up the VA system pretty quickly here in this country. But I think you're right, and what happens is if you have declining rates of payment for physicians, there will be a breaking point where physicians will quit taking. There are already some physicians who won't take Medicare because the rates become so low. All of the health care proposals now, when they say they're going to get efficiency or they're going to squeeze more money out of the system and somehow it won't cost us anything to add 46 million people to the insurance, it will cost, and it will ultimately have to lead to rationing or reduction in payment to physicians. But ultimately, if you don't pay physicians to do the work, you won't have physicians accepting the insurance, and that runs into more problems. And so really what you don't want is more government involvement. I say think of FEMA. When you think of government-run insurance, think of FEMA distributing water at the Superdome. They couldn't do the most basic things at the Superdome. Why would you want government to be involved in your health care? What they have now, we have Medicare, and it sort of works, but it's chronically short of money. So why would we want to make Medicare bigger or make government-run health care bigger? Because they're chronically short of money. Who do you want to make the decision on what we spend on health care? Do you want government making those decisions, or you want you and your doctor? How much are you worth? If you have 6 months to live, are you only worth $20,000 if we can increase your lifespan a year? That's what happens in England. They decide that you only have $25,000 worth of medicine. If your medicine's going to cost $50,000 and it only extends your life 6 months, you're not worth it. And do we want government making those decisions, or do you want the individual, you, your mother, your grandmother, and your doctor sitting in a room deciding what your mother needs or grandmother needs, or do you want government making those decisions? And I think Americans, if we debate this long enough and hard enough, are going to tell the politicians up here they don't want the government making their decisions for health care.
One of our viewers, Bill Smith, writes on our Twitter page, are you pro-life? And what do you think about Republican Chairman Michael Steele okaying pro-abortion Republican candidates and not following the party platform?
I am pro-life. I think it's wrong for the national groups to get involved in the state races, particularly when they're for someone who is promoting things that are against the platform. In my race, a big deal is I'm steadfastly against the bank bailout, and I tell every Republican voter I meet in Kentucky, and our platform says we don't believe in bailing out private businesses, and yet half the Republican leadership up here voted for the bank bailout. And a lot of those people who voted for the bank bailout are coming to Kentucky and giving buckets of cash to my Republican opponent, and I wish they'd stay out of my race and stay out of my state and let the people in Kentucky decide, you know, what's best for Kentucky.
All right, let's go to our next call from Reston, Virginia. We have Cheryl in on the Democratic line.
Good morning. Thanks for CSPAN. I think that the candidate really raises an interesting point about the lack of capitalism in healthcare. But by drawing an analogy to telephone service, I think you're missing a very important element that most of us all know, which is that healthcare is not like a cell phone. If I don't have a cell phone, I'm not going to die. If I have a heart attack, I'm in need of health care, and if I don't have that health care, I may very well die. And so I would contend that health care is not a commodity that you can buy and purchase and sell, and that it is far closer to a right to which all people should have access. Therefore, we can't buy and trade it on the open market. Because ultimately people cannot walk away from the purchase of their health care without walking away from this life.
I think it's a good point. It's a very important debate, and it is the debate we should have in Washington over whether health care is a right or not a right. If you say health care is a right, you have to then argue that you have a right to someone's labor. You have a right to involuntary servitude, because it's just not me as a physician. It's the janitor at the hospital, the nurse at the hospital, the administrator at the hospital, the people who build the hospitals, the people who invest. Do you have a right to their labor? I don't think you can have a right to something like that. You can have a right to an abstraction, like the pursuit of happiness, but you can't have a right to happiness. When you go back to health care, can health care be like a cell phone? Maybe not always, but about 90% of your health care you get is elective and done on a reasoned and slow fashion. Even a heart attack can be pre-negotiated in advance, and is a lot of times through health insurance pre-negotiated the rates. So yes, you do need capitalism, you do need price mobility, because the problem is if we only look at access and we put all these people in the system, we did nothing about expense. And really what most of us are complaining about is the expense. So if we lump all these people in, then the only way to control expense is through top-down sort of regulations and rationing and restrictioning of health care. So most health care actually is non-emergent. For the emergent part, we have 100% access. And that's something that can't be emphasized enough when they say people don't have health insurance. 100% of Americans have access to emergency care. It's been that way in the era of government, but it was also that way in the era before government. So we have 100% access. If you break your arm, every doctor in the country will see you and every hospital will see you regardless of your ability to pay. So that's important for us to know.